The Cuban people condemned the actions of the U.S. imperialism against Venezuela at an act of solidarity in Havana. In the United States, no King's March is expected on Saturday in several cities across the country against President Donald Trump's authoritarian policies. Amidst the humanitarian crisis the Palestinian people is currently facing due to the Israeli aggression, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees called for increasing the humanitarian aid that is to be sent to Gaza. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Sofía Fernandez from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. This Friday morning, Cuban men and women strengthened the historic bonds of solidarity that unite them with Venezuela, in an act that reaffirmed their support amid a context of U.S. imperial aggression against the Caribbean. Our correspondent, Belén de los Santos, brings us more details.
50,000 Havana residents headed today to the monument honoring the liberator Simón Bolívar. Their goal was to express their solidarity with the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela amid the escalating aggression and military deployment by the U.S. government that threatens peace in the region.
We are here to support them through this moment and to tell them that whatever their people may need, we Cubans are willing to give even our lives for our America, and particularly for the Venezuelan people, which is like a brother for Cubans.
We Cubans have more than enough reasons and motivations to continue defending the cause of Venezuela, which is like defending the Cuban cause. It is an act of solidarity, as we are used to get from Fidel, Chavez, Maduro, Diaz-Canel. Here is the Cuban Revolution and trade unionists.
The first vice president of the Venezuelan General Assembly, Pedro Infante, expressed his gratitude for this Caribbean embrace. In a conversation with teleSUR, he highlighted the importance of considering this U.S. escalation as a continuation of a long series of attacks against the popular government of our America.
The U.S. President has declared a few days ago that he authorized the CIA to operate inside Venezuela. They've truly been operating in Venezuela for years. They've been operating in different countries for years to overthrow what they consider inconvenient governments. Let us remember when they overthrew the government of João Goulart in Brazil. Let's remember what they did to Salvador Allende in Chile. Let's remember all of the actions the CIA has taken against Cuba. Let's remember the CIA's participation in the 2002 coup d'etat against Commander Hugo Chavez. Only now they declare it openly, cynically, without a shred of shame. It's U.S. imperialism in its most imperial form or version. We believe that. And that's why we are infinitely grateful for the gesture of the Cuban people, of the President of Cuba.
Despite the U.S. aggression against the region, which in addition to the military advances is consolidated in the xenophobic attacks against Latin American migrants, the Caribbean responds firmly, assuring it is not willing to give in to imperial pressure.
Hunger is used as a weapon of war against Palestine and is being used against Cuba, against Venezuela, against Nicaragua. But here there are people in resistance. This morning, another example that our lives will always be at the service of the resistance people, of revolution.
Venezuela levanta su voz con la verdad, con los argumentos y con la firmeza de un pueblo que está decidido a continuar siendo libre.
Belén de los Santos for teleSUR English from Havana, Cuba.
Also in Cuba, the third international meeting of left-wing parties and movements on theoretical publications concluded. The meeting, dedicated to Commander-in-Chief Fidel Castro Cruz in commemoration of his centenary in 2026, was attended by more than 120 theorists, communicators, journalists, and other experts. Political communication was the center of the debate. The conference reiterated the need to create platforms as a political tool, with the aim of ideological unity and give visibility to revolutionary struggles. During her speech, teleSUR multi-platform president Patricia Villegas condemned the United States' attempts to undermine peace in Venezuela through misinformation.
The Bolivarian people have stood up to the White House, which falsely insists that the South American nation is an unusual and extraordinary threat to the security of the United States, and that the legitimate leader, Nicolás Maduro, heads a narco-state. From the centers of imperialist power, they try to impose lies and misinformation on us. The machinery of the information corporation seeks to make false news and manipulations believable, becoming accomplices to falsehoods. They do not verify sources and censor our truths. We condemn attempts to undermine peace and impose the diplomacy of imperialist gunboats. We reaffirm that the unity of political forces and left-wing movements is an effective shield against attempts at destabilization. Only together can we confront the attempts of hegemonic imperialism that does not accept our sovereignty, self-determination, and decision to remain free.
Que no acepta nuestra soberanía, autodeterminación y decisión de seguir siendo libres.
In this sense, teleSUR President Patricia Villegas also condemned the U.S. economic, commercial, and financial blockade against Cuba.
We reiterate our condemnation of the Zionist genocide in the occupied Palestinian territories, especially in the Gaza Strip, where around 70,000 people have lost their lives, victims of Israeli neglect and gunfire. We strongly condemn the U.S. economic, commercial, and financial blockade imposed on Cuba for more than 60 years, which has intensified unprecedentedly since 2019, with the aim of economically suffocating the Cuban people. We demand the immediate removal of Cuba from the spurious list of countries allegedly sponsoring terrorism. We call on all governments of the world to vote in favor of the resolution entitled The Necessity of Ending the Economic, Commercial, and Financial Blockade imposed by the United States against Cuba, to be presented on October 28 and 29 at the United Nations General Assembly. We firmly reject the fourth-generation warfare waged against the revolutionary processes of Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua, countries that have been arbitrarily excluded from the upcoming Summit of the Americas to be held in the Dominican Republic.
And now we have a short break coming up. But first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. On Saturday, a massive march is expected with at least 2,500 events in several cities across the United States on No King's Day protests against President Donald Trump's policies. Several civil organizations call for this peaceful protest to draw attention to what they call the Republican leaders' anti-democratic and authoritarian policies. For the organizers, this should be a historic day in which the goal for the protest is discussed. They hope that the number will exceed the 5 million people who attended the first initiative of this type last June. There is talk of rallies in New York, Illinois, Texas, California, Oregon, and Chicago, currently the epicenter of Trump's attacks on irregular immigration. Moving on to Brazil, the investigation into former President Jair Bolsonaro reopened on Thursday, seeking to determine if he promoted interference in the police during his administration. The reopening of the judicial investigation was ordered by Judge Alexandre de Moraes, one of the members of the Brazilian Supreme Court, following the request made on Wednesday by the Attorney General Paulo Gonet. Jair Bolsonaro, currently under house arrest, was sentenced in September to 27 years and 3 months in prison for leading a plot to stage a coup after losing the 2022 elections to President Lula da Silva. The far-right politician is also under investigation for allegedly stealing $1.2 million worth of jewelry received during official trips to Saudi Arabia. In other news, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro urged during the inauguration of the City of Entrepreneurships, located in the Oscar López Riviera urban development. The Venezuelan leader assured, in the face of threats from the Donald Trump administration, the Venezuelan people are stronger morally, politically, psychologically, and militarily, ready to defend the peace, sovereignty, and wealth of the country. He also reiterated that in the face of aggression from the United States imperialism, the people continue to work to strengthen the national economy through entrepreneurship.
Ganar la paz
Let's win peace by exercising our sovereignty and defending our right to life, joy, and the greatest social happiness to which we are entitled. Who can take away our right to social happiness? Do they want to erase the name of Venezuela from the map? Is it possible to erase the name of Venezuela from history and the map? Is it possible to erase all Venezuelans? Is it possible to erase the history of Bolivar, Sucre? It is impossible.
Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro also expressed his gratitude to the Cuban people, his counterpart Miguel Díaz-Canel, and Army General Raúl Castro Cruz for the outstanding mobilization in support of the Venezuelan people.
But also, on behalf of the entire people of Venezuela, I would like to thank the people of Cuba, the people of Havana, President Miguel Díaz-Canel, Army General, and leader of the Cuban Revolution, Raúl Castro Cruz, for the immense mobilization of solidarity, support, and love from the Cuban people, from the people of Havana, to the people of Venezuela. Cuba and Venezuela are together so that they leave, when they leave, and how they leave. The sons of Bolivar, the sons of Martí, the sons of Sucre, the sons of Antonio Maceo. We are united, together. Today more than ever, the difficulties and hardships unite us from the heart. Cuba and Venezuela, one people, one flag. I want to thank you. You have delivered 4,387,000 signatures from Cubans who signed at universities, at their workplaces, in their communities, rejecting the threats of the North American empire against peace in South America, and against the stability of Venezuela.
In other news, we go to Argentina, where people with disabilities, along with family members and organizations, rallied in Buenos Aires City to express their rejection of President Javier Milei's neoliberal measures. During this Friday, dozens of people entered the headquarters of the National Disability Agency to deliver a petition to the authorities as part of the various claims against the policies of Milei administration. However, the personnel in charge refused to receive the report because the protesters entered the place with the objective of putting pressure and giving visibility to the demands of the sector. This protest is developing in the middle of political tensions over the suspension of the emergency law on disability and its application. Saturday marks 6 years since the social unrest in Chile. Protests were sparked by deep social unrest and were suppressed by security forces. In October 2019, the metro fare increase triggered the largest protest since the end of the dictatorship. They reflected discontent with the inequality and neoliberalism. 6 years after the popular uprising, the prosecutor's office acknowledged in a report that there were 30 deaths and 464 victims of eye injury, mostly caused by projectiles fired by security forces. The report also states that between October 18, 2019 and March 31, 2020, there were 35,146 crimes committed in the country, 34.1% of which were committed by state agents. We have a second short break coming up. Before, we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, but we'll be right back with more from the South. Don't go away. The United Nations Relief and Work Agency for Palestine refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, called for increased aid to Gaza, which is currently suffering a severe crisis due to the Israeli aggression. The Director of Communications for the UN agency, Jonathan Fowler, warned that every day or even every hour that is lost is another life that will be lost. He explained that UNRWA has an extensive aid distribution network that can reverse the famine, but accused the Israeli authorities of preventing it from delivering supplies to the coastal enclave, where more than 2 million Palestinians live. The humanitarian situation there remains catastrophic, said Fowler, who welcomed the recent ceasefire agreement between the Islamic resistance movement Hamas and Israel. Meanwhile, in Palestine, the Hamas resistance movement reaffirms that it continues to search for the bodies of Israeli detainees in the city of Hamad, south of the Gaza Strip. Hamas used excavators to search for the remains of the deceased detainees while trying to consolidate its fragile ceasefire agreement with Israel, reaffirming its commitment to the terms of the pact, which include the return of the bodies. Hamas said that some of the detainees were in tunnels or buildings that were later destroyed by Israel, and heavy machinery is needed to dig through the rubble and recover them. The resistance movement blames Israel for the delay, as it has not allowed new excavators to enter the Gaza Strip. On the other hand, U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to resume the war if Hamas does not fulfill its part of the agreement and return all the bodies of the detainees. In Mexico, the death toll from flooding caused by heavy rains in at least 5 states rose to 72. Federal authorities warn that 48 people are missing, while more than 80 towns are isolated with up to 2,200 residents. They also specified that the most affected states are Veracruz, Hidalgo, and Puebla. For its part, the National Electricity Commission pointed out that power has been restored to 95.4% of the affected states. Authorities assured that in the coming days, land communications with the most remaining localities are expected to be restored, although air operations will continue to supply hard-to-reach communities. Heavy rain and hail hit the town of Tarija in southern Bolivia, destroying crops and flooding streets this Thursday afternoon. Authorities reported that the weather event destroyed several crops and damaged the infrastructure of educational and health centers and housing. The Secretary of Economy and Finance of the Department of Federation of Farmers of Tarija, David Yucra, emphasized that the assessment of the damage will continue this Friday. For his part, the mayor of Tarija, Johnny Torres, together with 200 workers, formed emergency brigades for the most affected areas and emphasized that although the storm lasted over 40 minutes, it caused the collapse of the streets. In the Czech Republic, the sky over Prague lit up with the 13th edition of the Signal Light Festival. On this occasion, 17 installations by artists from around the world are on display. For the first time in the festival's history, the nearly 70-meter tower of the Old Town Hall will be transformed into a canvas for the monumental projection. Until October 19, visitors will be able to explore various routes that cover both iconic locations and lesser-known spaces, enjoying monumental projections and digital art. In addition, complementary events will be organized that will fuse music, art, and technology. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media. We're on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Sophie Fernandez. Thank you for watching.